Evala's rage simmered as she sat in her prison cell, her mind consumed by the thoughts of revenge against Jola. Every day, she meticulously plotted how she could make Jola pay for the perceived wrongs. Evala's obsession grew so deep that she began collecting newspaper clippings and any information she could gather about Jola's life. But who is Evala? Evala grew up in a small rural town with a childhood marked by hardship and neglect. Born into a dysfunctional family, Evala never knew the warmth of a loving home. Her father was an alcoholic who frequently lashed out in anger, and her mother was emotionally distant, often disappearing for days at a time. As a child, Evala spent most of her time alone, wandering the fields and forests near her home, searching for solace in the beauty of nature, but never truly finding it. Despite the harshness of her home life, Evala was a bright and imaginative girl. She excelled in school and dreamed of one day escaping her miserable surroundings to build a better life for herself. However, the cruelty of her environment gradually wore her down, and she became increasingly withdrawn and bitter. The few friends she had made eventually drifted away, unable to penetrate the walls she built around herself. In her teenage years, Evala's resentment towards the world deepened. She began to view life as a series of betrayals and injustices. She was convinced that happiness was something that could only be taken by force, not freely given. This belief led her down a dark path. Evala started associating with a rough crowd, getting involved in petty crimes, and developing a taste for manipulation and control. She became skilled at getting what she wanted through deceit and intimidation. As Evala entered adulthood, she moved to a nearby town where she met a man named Dakpo. He was older and shared her cynical outlook on life. The two quickly became partners in both life and crime, engaging in increasingly dangerous and illegal activities. However, their relationship was toxic, marked by mutual distrust and manipulation. It was during this time that Evala's capacity for violence and cruelty truly emerged. She became known for her ruthless nature, willing to do whatever it took to achieve her goals. But Evala's life took a dark turn when she was arrested for a serious crime. A crime that resulted from a betrayal by Dakpo, who set her up to take the fall while he escaped. This betrayal shattered whatever remnants of trust or love Evala had left, solidifying her belief that she could only rely on no one but herself. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, where her rage and desires for revenge against those who had wronged her, especially Dakpo, consumed her. In prison, Evala's anger festered, and she became even more hardened. She used her time behind bars to plot her revenge, not just against Dakpo, but against anyone she perceived as having a better life than hers. It was in prison that she first heard about Jola, a fellow inmate who spoke fondly of her sister, also named Jola. The stories of these other Jolas' seemingly perfect life, a life full of love, happiness, and family, ignited a deep, irrational hatred in Evala. In her twisted mind, Jola became an embodiment of everything Evala had been denied. Meanwhile, Jola's life blossomed. After her marriage to Dakpo, she moved into a quaint cottage on the outskirts of town. The cottage had an old world charm with ivy-covered walls and a lush garden and a cozy fireplace. They welcomed their daughter Emike into the world, who became the light of their lives. As the years passed, Evala's obsession with Jola grew. She began collecting information about her through letters from a former accomplice on the outside, feeding her delusion that Jola's happiness was an affront to her own misery. Evala's desire to destroy Jola became her sole focus, driving her deeper into madness. By the time she was nearing the end of her prison sentence, Evala was no longer just angry. She was consumed by a single-minded need for revenge, unable to distinguish between reality and the dark fantasies she had constructed in her mind. On the eve of Evala's scheduled release, a new inmate arrived at the prison. Her name was Jola. Something inside Evala snapped at the mere mention of that name. Unable to distinguish between the innocent inmate and the real Jola, Evala unleashed her fury, attacking the woman with a savage intensity that shocked even the hardened prison guards. The assault was so brutal that it extended Evala's sentence by another 5 years. Evala's attack wasn't just an outburst of rage. In her mind, she believed she was attacking the real Jola. The next morning, when she came to her senses and realized what she had done, the lines between reality and delusion blurred further for Evala, deepening her obsession. Back in the quiet town, Jola's life appeared idyllic, but soon strange things began to happen. It started innocently enough when Emike's favorite stuffed bear, Mr. Fluffy, disappeared. Jola and Dakwa turned the house upside down, looking for it, but to no avail. 3 days later, the bear reappeared on Emike's bed, cleaner and newer than before, as if it had never been lost. "Mommy, Mr. Fluffy smells like roses now," Emike giggled, cuddling her toy. Jola brushed it off as a child's imagination, but a subtle unease settled in her chest. The next incident was less benign. One evening, Jola was cooking dinner when the pot of soup inexplicably tipped over, spilling scalding liquid across the kitchen floor. Jola screamed and jumped back just in time, narrowly avoiding a serious burn. As Dakwa helped clean up, Jola whispered, "Dakwa, this isn't normal. First Mr. Fluffy, now this." Oh, Dakwa reassured her, "It's just bad luck, Joe. Let's not read too much into it." That night, as they slept, the kitchen light flickered on and off, as if an unseen presence was moving through the house. The following morning, Jola found the word "why" scrawled in condensation on the bathroom mirror. But when she tried to show Dakwa, it vanished. Several weeks later, Jola and Dakwa were awakened by the acrid smell of smoke. They rushed downstairs to find their kitchen engulfed in flames. The fire alarm had malfunctioned, failing to alert them sooner. Dakwa grabbed the fire extinguisher, battling the blaze with desperate urgency. After what felt like an eternity, they managed to put out the fire, leaving their kitchen charred and smoky. The fire department arrived and investigated, but they found no clear cause. The stove was off, there were no candles, and no electrical faults were detected. This doesn't make sense, the fire chief muttered, shaking his head. Jola, shaken to the core, started to believe that someone or something was out to get them. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As Jola and Dapo tried to sleep that night, the fire's reflection flickered in their bedroom mirror, even though the flames had been long extinguished. Jola swore she saw a shadowy figure standing behind her in the reflection. But when she turned, there was nothing there. The next morning, she found a single black feather on the pillow beside her, a sign of something ominous. Life began to return to normal, or so Jola thought, until the day she nearly lost everything. She was driving Emike to school, chatting about the daily plans, when a black SUV ran a red light at full speed. In a split second, Jola swerved, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic collision. Her heart raced as she pulled over, shaking uncontrollably. "Mommy, are we okay?" Emike asked, her voice small and scared. "We are fine, sweetheart. It was just someone wasn't paying attention," Jola replied, her voice trembling. But deep down, Jola knew this wasn't just a careless driver. The SUV had no license plate, and when she glanced back at the intersection, the vehicle was gone, as if it had vanished into thin air. Later that night, Dapo found tire marks on their driveway that matched the pattern of the SUV tires. But when they reviewed the footage from their home security camera, the screen went blank just as the SUV appeared, leaving no trace of its existence. The tension in the house grew unbearable. Jola felt like she was losing her grip on reality. One stormy night, the family was startled by the sound of shattering glass. They rushed to Emike's room, finding her wide-eyed and frightened on her bed. The window was broken, glass shattered across the floor, and a cold wind howled through the room. That boy inspected the window. There's no sign of anything hitting it. It's like it just exploded. Jola's fear deepened. This can't go on, Dapo. Someone is terrorizing us. They called the police, but once again, no evidence of foul play was found. The officers left, and Jola felt more isolated than ever. That night, Jola had a very clear dream. She saw herself standing in the middle of a desolate field with crows circling above. A figure cloaked in shadows approached her, whispering, "It's not over." She woke up drenched in sweat, but the words echoed in her mind. The next morning, she found a small pile of broken glass in the hallway, despite cleaning up every shard the night before. The day of Evala's release finally came. She walked out of the prison gates, her heart pounding with anticipation. She was free, and her twisted obsession with Jola had reached its peak. She would end this once and for all. Evala tracked Jola down to the same town where she had begun her new life. She watched from a distance as Jola and Emike strolled through the park, laughing and playing. Hatred boiled in Evala's veins. She couldn't bear to see Jola happy. As Jola and Emike appeared to cross the street, Evala seized her chance. She stepped off the curb, her eyes fixed on Jola, but as she was about to move, a sudden gust of wind pushed her back, causing her to stumble. At that moment, a car came out of nowhere speeding towards her. Evala had no time to react. The car slammed into her and she was killed instantly. As Evala lay lifeless on the pavement, a single black feather drifted down from the sky, landing on her chest. Jola, completely unaware of Evala's presence, glanced back at the scene, seeing the commotion but having no idea that the woman who had tormented her in the shadows was now gone. She felt a strange sense of peace wash over her, as if an unseen force had lifted a great burden from her shoulders. As Jola and Emike walked away, a gentle breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it the sense that the unseen forces protecting them had simply vanquished the darkness that had loomed over their lives.